About 9 months ago, I reached almost a breaking point. I had about $200 in my bank account, and I'd been an entrepreneur since I was 15. I think I was 17, 18 at the time. So I'd already been taking shots on goal, trying to make this thing work. I'd gotten to a financial point where I was basically at rock bottom with $200 in my account. So I was at a crossroad. I either, get a job, start working and building up some capital, then trying again, or I just bet on myself and keep trying to make it work. And me being an entrepreneur, getting a job was probably one of the worst options. I didn't want to go to that level. So I ended up taking that $200 and just investing in myself. I had $200 in my bank account and then a $4,000 credit limit. So I ended up I spent $100 a day for almost 30 days and put close to 3 grand into ads with money that I didn't have. This was all on my credit card. So I bet on myself, and lo and behold, I signed a $6,000 client, so I profited around $3,000 from that. And that experience made me realize most people they're not gonna take that risk, and they're not going to actually bet on themselves. And it made me realize situations like that are what separate people, the successful people from the ones who never actually, achieve their goals. And the way I've started thinking about situations like this, rather than allowing it to overwhelm me and cause me to be anxious and depressed, really just seeing it like I'm digging a moat. Like every time I take a risk that most people aren't comfortable taking, every time I do that, that's just digging my moat deeper and deeper. And I'm realizing that that struggle and that pain is working on me more than anything else. It's shaping me into someone who is resilient, who's willing to take risks, and who's not going to back down just by, setbacks. It's getting myself to see different angles and be comfortable taking risks, being willing to lose it all, but also trusting myself in the fact that I'm going to figure it out. And I think those situations are where you're really tested, and your mindset is more important than ever. Are you going to, take the easy option, or are you going to be the type of person who keeps taking risk and has the right mindset around it? Because most people are not willing to do that. Think of how many people are willing to go in debt to try and figure out how to make this work. Recently, I hired a speaking coach. So he's been pushing me to improve my communication, which is why I'm actually recording these videos, just to practice communicating in a clear, concise way. One of the challenges that he challenged me to was posting YouTube 3 times a week consistently, every single week, putting out 3 YouTube videos. And I got my first 2 YouTube videos out, and I looked at the views, and I've got a total of 14 views. And I know I'm not going to make it off the first couple videos. I know they're not going to go viral, but it got me like doubting the whole thing. It's like, am I qualified to even post on YouTube? Have I achieved anything in my life? Why am I posting to YouTube? And all these doubts start creeping in. And I've had to reframe my mindset around that to realize that friction and that resistance that I'm feeling towards doing this is what keeps most people stuck where they're at. And kind of seeing a pattern. There's been so many times where I don't want to do something. I don't want to, go in debt to try and make this work. I don't want to keep failing and failing and failing. But that process is what works on you more than it does anything else. It turns you into someone who's resilient and someone who's able to push past that pain, push past the discomfort, and actually become someone who is worthy of success. And it reminded me of the story of Joseph. He was basically given a dream by God that was basically saying he's going to rule over all of his brothers. He tells his brothers that, and they just resent him for it. So they try to kill him. They end up throwing him into a pit, which leads him to being basically taken into captivity, taken to Egypt, and he ends up working his way to the top and is promoted to be basically one of the highest authorities in Egypt. He gets to that point, and Potiphar, who is he was like the chief of all the guards, his wife tries to seduce him, tries to seduce Joseph, and Joseph does the right thing and he flees. Potiphar's wife ends up flipping that story, saying Joseph tried to seduce her, and Joseph ends up getting in massive trouble and getting thrown into prison. And while he's in prison, he still does what's right, which ends up leading to him basically interpreting a dream for Pharaoh. Pharaoh bumps him up to basically the second in command over all of Egypt. All that to say, this whole time Joseph is still doing what's right. He's still, moving forward. He's still taking action, doing what's right. While at the same time, God is throwing him all these challenges to test him. And it turns out, at the end of the day, he becomes one of the highest authorities in Egypt because he continues to obviously trust God and do what's right, but also keep moving forward. And that's what shaped him into the man that he became. So it's just something to be aware of. Like, when you're going through the struggling and the suffering, it's so easy to just let it weigh you down and change your action to take the comfortable route. But really, God wants us to have struggling and suffering so he can test us, so we can actually grow as humans. So when you experience all these, struggles and uncomfortable situations, it's very helpful to just reframe that as that's what's required, and that's what's going to turn you into a person who's actually capable of achieving success. You're not going to achieve it just by having a comfortable life. There's so many examples of, someone wins a lottery, they didn't work for it, they make all this money, and then they blow it, and they're in debt, months or years later. Same with the crypto people. The people who actually work for it and struggle and suffer and get beaten down, but learn how to deal with that pain and how to use it to become a better person, are the ones who actually have long-term success. So if you're watching this and you're at a low point, it feels like nothing is going your way no matter how hard you try, just realize that's you digging your moat. You're making that moat deeper and deeper, and every time that you do something uncomfortable, just realize most people are not willing to do that. Most people want to take the comfortable route, and when you finally start seeing success, you look back and you're like, all those painful moments have shaped me into who I've become today.